Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. That's right. The wait is almost over. New main series new main series edited videos are coming back soon. By the time this episode comes out, I will already have been started the editing process of that episode. It's a pretty good missed opportunity for what would have essentially been the best opening for the series ever. If I allowed myself to actually tirelessly work myself to the bone to make the fucking episode to be released on the first Thursday of this year, I would have been able to make a video on Public Domain Day, which is probably going to be very good, which would have been very good for me because the thesis of this year is going to be copyright videos. That's my new hyperfixation. You all have to deal with it. I've already envisioned I've already envisioned you all are gonna be if you're not into this issue, then you're gonna be very sorely disappointed this year. There are gonna be other videos that are not copyright related, but there are a lot of videos this year that are gonna be copyright related, and they're actually gonna be somewhat interesting because a lot of them are actually gonna be somewhat branching out content wise, stuff that's not necessarily political. I guess they are, but they're also not. Maybe I could finally drag the normies here. And yeah, that kind of gives you a clue. The first episode is going to be copyright related, but it's also interesting because this video is actually also relevant because of the fact that it's going to come out during Black History Month. Give some love to the channel trailer that I put out for this year. It's pretty good. I like it. Give some love to it. I'm surprised that a lot of people didn't even comment anything just to be like, yo, because I'm just saying. There is one. I will say one thing. There's one particular clip in that thing that you are definitely all going to be very confused about when that episode comes out. I'm trying to think if it will be worth it. Not necessarily if it'll be worth it. I think that for the most part, the videos that are come out this year are going to be good. Some might be. I guess it'll have to be. That'll be more up to you. This is my channel. I can do what I want. I guess. Like it, don't. That's your opinion. I guess. Even if you don't like it, feel free to voice your concerns in the comments below. Speaking of concerns, let's get right into the news. The first news story is coming from Venezuela, and it basically reveals a very interesting development. So, Venezuelan MPs approve a bill to open up the oil sector to private firms. Venezuela's National Assembly has approved a reform of the country's hydrocarbons law that will allow private companies, including foreign firms, more autonomy in the country's lucrative oil sector. Once the law is signed off by the country's interim president, it is expected to pave the way for more foreign investment in the oil industry. U.S. President Donald Trump has been pushing U.S. oil companies to invest in Venezuela's vast oil reserves despite decades of mismanagement, underinvestment, and still uncertain political climate. But one of the barriers for investors has been the existing framework that gave the state oil company PDVSA majority control over operating oil projects. Shortly after Venezuelan MPs signed the law, the U.S. eased its sanctions. And this is the big thing. You see, there seems to be two roads that people are trying to figure out in regards to this. And both of them are very likely, but we're still unsure about. You see, road one is that this is obviously intentional. Because one of the big things, the whole operation for Maduro to get captured to begin with, basically most people conclude there's no way that could have happened if there wasn't an inside man, if there wasn't someone on the inside who had infiltrated and used their position to allow this to happen. And many of the people are trying to figure out, who is it? And the most likely suspect that a lot of people are pointing to is Delcy Rodriguez, who is the current president, who was Maduro's vice president. Because there's the whole thing where it's she says things that's sound as if she's just continuing the Chavista Maduro legacy. And then there's statements that America says, where she's basically kowtowing to literally every single thing that they do. But then there comes the second one, where it's like her kowtowing and her bending the knee is basically just her trying to get the US off of their back. Both of them are likely. I don't really know what is Delsey's plan. If there is a plan, I'm not sure there is a plan. I mean, again, either of these situations sound likely. I guess I could make it this poll of the week. Is Delsey an op, or is Delsey just dealt a shit hand that she has to deal with? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. Speaking of having to wait and see, let's shift to a less high-stakes story and talk about the British Labour Party. So, in the British Labour Party, there's a by-election that's going to be going on in a certain district. And what has happened is that there's one particular person in that district that many people have, well, constituency is what they call it in the UK, that has been floated as a potential candidate in the race. The candidate is the mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. He's basically the guy that, he's an incumbent mayor and apparently, relatively popular, and they're like, hey, seems to be, a pretty good choice to be a candidate in the fucking election. He's apparently relatively liked. He's a candidate of the more soft left faction, so not necessarily a right-wing Labour MP, but he is not a left-wing MP either. He identifies as a socialist, but he also is part of the soft left, not necessarily hardcore, like Corbynite. He in fact ran against Corbyn in the election, to be the leadership of the Labour Party in that election cycle. And despite the fact that he is a pretty obviously good choice for the election, the Labour Party has stated that they have the Labour Party, particularly Keir, the National Election Commission of the Labour Party, has stated that they will not be giving him the nomination. And that's one of the big confusions. This is the thing that I mentioned this before in my UK video, where it's in my most recent UK election video, where I talked about how the Labour Party used to have this really strange situation where it's originally, usually it's the local MPs or the local party that gets to choose, but then Keir Starmer basically stepped in and revitalized the process to pick MPs. And one of the big things that he's done is he's basically made it so that he literally has to be basically the final say when it comes to choosing MPs. And that's one of the big confusing things, because people are also confused, but wait, this is a guy who's a pretty good candidate. He's a popular mayor. He's not even necessarily that far ideologically from you, Starmer, so what's the issue? The issue is Andy Burnham is so popular that many people think, especially with the ever so falling support of Keir Starmer, that Andy Burnham is going to run a Labour leadership campaign against him, and Keir Starmer is he would rather lose this seat than anything else. Then allow for someone to replace him. And there's really not much else for me to say, because that's just the inevitable truth of the British Labour Party. Unfortunately, the left wing, even the actual left wing in the UK, is not really doing so hot, because your party is still having some fucking troubles, and it's just really depressing. But anyways, speaking of depressing, let's move on to the next story. Basically, big reason why I never bought TikTok and why I never engaged with TikTok and why I'm not on TikTok. So TikTok is now officially basically state-run US media, because recently they announced that they were doing an update, and now, after this update, magically a lot of pro-Palestinian content is now no longer being recommended to people, and now you can't talk about Jeffrey Epstein on the site anymore. This all coming literally immediately after TikTok had finally sold off, finally followed the rule that they were forced to do for a long period of time, where it's they had to sell themselves to an American company in order to stay active. And yeah, TikTok is now officially an op. I mean, guys, you guys understand, it was bound to happen at some point or another. It happened almost immediately after the Trump administration came in. It's after the Trump administration did the thing where they pretended that they cared about TikTok for 2 seconds, they almost immediately started bending the knee. Every single social media site is now bought and paid for by right-wing lunatics. All of them. Every single one of them. As long as these things are private companies, that's what's going to happen. And one thing a lot of people were saying is that this situation basically ended up happening purely because, the Biden administration finally, they did the thing where, they were going to ban TikTok, and it was a thing that was started by the Trump administration, but yes, Biden actually going through and not stopping the thing initially is clearly what inevitably set the stage for this. But the fact of the matter is, this was always bound to happen. Guys, a Chinese-owned social media site where children were spreading political messaging that wasn't the establishment wings of the parties. You guys really didn't think this was going to happen at some point? Guys, it was going to be bought. Every single social media site that espouses the political the antithesis of what the political establishment wants, they get bought and corrupted by the mainstream. It literally just happened to Twitter right before it happened to TikTok. Again, as long as these social media sites remain private companies, this is just going to happen repeatedly. It's going to happen to Blue Sky. It's going to happen to everything. It's going to happen to all of them. Not much else for me to say, so let's move on to the next story. And it's coming from supposedly a member of the opposition. So Julie Johnson, who just received the AOC endorsement because of her anti-ICE comments. Like most members of Congress nowadays who are Democrats, they try to at least posture on being oh, we're going to hold ICE accountable or whatever. But as recently as last year, she was found to have bought and sold stocks from PALANTIR Technologies, a contractor with the federal government that has been key in the Trump administration's efforts to track and deport undocumented immigrants. And it says here, she bought Palantir stock days before Donald Trump took office for a second term, and again on February 12th of 2025, according to Congressional Financial Disclosure reports, and she sold her shares a few months later in April and June, earning between $1,000 to $15,000. And she's tried to say oh well, I came to Congress after years as a small business owner and attorneys with complex pre-existing financial holdings. The law didn't require me to divest, but I chose to do so because earning the trust of my constituents matters more than personal convenience. Blah, 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 blah. Bitch, you bought the stocks. Fuck you. You bought the stocks. Guys, I mean, this could just be me, but I literally have never heard of Palantir until they started doing all of the oh, by the way, we can literally, what, didn't that happen? I tried looking it up, but you all could correct me, but if I remember correctly, the first time I really heard about Palantir was when Hassan Piker, it happened, didn't it happen where Hassan Piker hired them to delete all of his data, and then they had it could be. I could be misinterpreting. Again, if people were actually watching this, comment what I actually am referring to. But I remember that something like that happened. I've only started hearing about Palantir was literally when they started doing all of this. Oh, by the way, we're going to actually start literally recording every single American and start keeping this information for ourselves. And it's not even a government thing, it's a private company thing. It would have been good if it was a government thing, but it's a private contractor, which means they don't have as much. The thing is, yes, the government doing it and, the private industry doing it is bad, obviously, for two different things. But the thing is, there are different rules, and that's how they're going to get away with all the bad things that's going to happen with the Palantir, stuff. Since it's not an official government thing, they're going to have less restrictions. But since they are signed up with the government, as a government contractor, they're going to be given way more privileges than a normal private company would have the ability to. So I don't give a shit what this stupid useless cunt has to say about oh, well, no, you bought share in this company that was doing bad things. I don't give a shit if you were doing it for whatever bullshit reason you had prior. And you have no claim to fame on any semblance of actually caring about the immigrant community. Now, why is AOC endorsing her? It's because she's going up against Colin Allred, who I guess might be worse than her, but there's also a progressive candidate in the race, I think? I don't know, I haven't really found any information about them. They get, Track APAC, he's posting their image and stuff, but I haven't actually checked to see if they're an actual candidate in the race, or if they didn't get the file or whatever. But the point is, fuck Julia Johnson. Anyways, next story, and it's also going to be covering ICE. There are multiple stories, but it's basically one thesis for I guess it's just two things, or whatever. But first, it's just the general continuation of the protests and stuff that is going on in Minneapolis. But one of the big things that has come from it is the fact that they did arrest Don Lemon. If you don't remember, Don Lemon was at a church there was a protest at a church, and Don Lemon covered the protest, and Donald Trump then claimed that he was illegally doing something that he wasn't supposed to do, even though he was literally just covering the protest. The claim being that Don Lemon violated the FACE Act. How did he do it? I don't know, but apparently he did. And right-wing accounts immediately pounced, trying to say that this is a good thing somehow, that a president arresting a journalist for covering a protest is actually like a good thing, but that they were demanding that he needed to be charged, even though there's so much that was wrong that happened. Like, first of all, a judge immediately first dismissed it and be like, this is a stupid case, this is no basis on anything. But then Trump went ahead and arrested them anyways, and they tried to say, no, a jury convicted them. It's like, no, a jury did not convict them. A jury, I don't really even know how this happened. Like, the judge said, no, we will not sign off on the arrest warrant for this person. Ergo, they will not be arrested. And this is the thing, let's explain, apparently, this is the FACE Act. Like, the FACE Act is basically a bill that's it basically is a bill that, prevents protests from going, I guess, too far. In the sense, it's the Freedom to Access the Clinic Entrances and Places of Religious Worship Act, which is basically, you can't protest at a church in the sense that you can't prevent people from going into the church. Or, in a lot of the most common way that this bill gets, done is that people who violate it are usually people who are trying to, block access to abortion clinics, i.e., access to clinic entrances. You can't block people from entering, a medical facility or a place of worship. Don Lemon did neither of these things, so he did not violate this law. And, as such, he is now out without bail. He technically will have a trial on February the 9th, but this trial is meaningless because there is nothing there. There is nothing there. And there are a couple of other journalists that are being arrested and will be going through similar charges. And one of the things that a lot of people are pointing out is the fact that due to how the ICE and how all the law enforcement agencies in this nation are now so bad, that literally they are impeding their own investigations, because footage has come out of one of the journalists in question, Georgia Fort, who literally recorded herself getting arrested, and she literally did not allow them to come in, even though they kept demanding to come inside to, arrest her, because she was afraid that they were going to kill her. Because, remember, earlier, in last year, there were two Minnesota members of the Minnesota legislature that were shot and killed by people who are faking being law enforcement agents in similar garb to the way ICE members are dressed now. And the other, I guess, story was just kind of a general continuation of explain the protest, because even though we're in the middle of an ice storm, or at least we were in the ice storm very recently at the time, thousands of people in Minneapolis were braving the bitter cold to protest ICE. Ironic in the name, I know. And there's so much to say, because these stories both show a lot of things. One of the things that they show is one of the things that a lot of people are trying to say, because one of the things that a lot of people on the right are trying to do, on the MAGA side, are trying to desperately do, is trying to use all of these incidents as proof of a victory, when all of these incidents just show more possible failures. Because again, thousands of people are protesting in negative 10 degrees weather. That doesn't sound like that doesn't sound like losing to me. If people are willing to go protest in that inclement weather, then sounds like you're not doing so hot. And another thing that shows a victory is sort of the moral victory, because listen to that statement again. When Lemon was getting arrested, they people like Matt Walsh were saying that Lemon needed to try Lemon immediately, because if they didn't, then this was just going to backfire. Sure enough, it backfired, and that shows a fundamental thing. It's this is the big thing. It's all this far right reactionary stuff that they're doing. Sending the police, sending people armed to armed thugs to just randomly murder people in Minneapolis. This isn't going to work in a liberal democracy. Like, in a liberal democracy, this is not going to work well for them. This only works if they succeed in the coup, if they succeed in, like, the fascist takeover. That's the only way this works. This isn't going to work in any normal way. And people even making jokes where it's like, the stuff in Minneapolis is so bad that they literally dredged up the Epstein files again. They see the desperation. Like, I mean, I pointed this out before. Like, I literally said that 2024 could have been the year that fascism was ended in America. And, well, I still think that I'm proud of it true, but, like, maybe it's just a push back a little bit. I mean, like, there's some hopium. I mean, no, like, never give up until it's over. Like, I don't believe in giving up until it's over. And another thing, it just a smaller thing, but, like, one other thing that shows just a little bit of the, like, small elements of, like, showing the desperation is the claim that has been popping up massively on social media nowadays, the phrase, "I am the boot." For those who don't know, because one of the big things that has been going on is, like, a lot of people have been calling, MAGA people, Trump Republicans, stuff like bootlickers. But one of the big things that they keep replying with, especially, like, I think Tim Pool is the one who started it, but, like, it's the thing that's, like, just been popping off a lot more with, like, right-wing influencer accounts where they say, like, "I am the boot." It's like, no, you're not. No, are you Donald Trump? Are you J.D. Vance? Are you Ghislaine Maxwell? Are you Samuel Bankman-Fried? Are you OpenAI's guy? Are you any of the people who are currently like the government? No, then you are not the boot. You are not the boot. Like, the notion, I really do not understand. Like, I mean, I understand this notion because they're just stupid. They don't understand reality. They do not understand the concept that this government, like, this area, like, it doesn't matter. They're not gonna save you. They're in it for themselves and their short financial gain, their short power gain, their power fantasy, and you are not in it. That is the element of fascism that is, like, one of the most intrinsic things. Every one of them believes they are the guy, the Ubermensch, but they're not. The only one person is the guy. Everyone else is a bootlicker to them. They're not going to reward you for loyalty. Your loyalty means nothing to them. You are an ant beneath their boot. You are not the boot. And let's explain this in the most basic sense that anybody ever understands. Do you all remember the poem? Remember the poem? The famous poem of Nazi Germany, "First They Came." We all know the text. First they came for the communists, then they came for the socialists, then they came for the trade unionists, then they came for the Jews, then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. The guy who wrote that poem was a Nazi. He voted for the Nazi Party in 3 straight elections and literally praised Hitler's ascension to power. And how was he rewarded? Being sent to a concentration camp. You're going to the same camp as the rest of us. You're not special. You are not the boot. You are the tongue. Anyways, next story is a bit of a depressing one to contrast. It's basically the way they're trying to continue the way they're trying to continue to push for the winning, and it is the fact that Fulton County officials, they've been, like, the 2020 ballots of Fulton County have been seized by the FBI, and for some reason, Tulsi Gabbard was there. I say for some reason, but the reason why is obvious. It's just because, the deep state wants to, do all they can for all this BS. I mean, I don't know what they've done with this information. I think it literally just was to stir, controversy and dissent. Controversy, to get people to be like, oh, well, 2020, because I think they're trying to, all the bots on social media are trying to, say, like, but what if, it's revealed that 2020 was stolen from Trump? It's like, it's not going to happen because that didn't happen. But the point is, they're clearly trying to keep this talking point in the realm. I don't know if they're just going to flat out lie, because this is the thing, I don't understand why they haven't, they will lie about a lot of things. For some reason, they won't even go, like, that one step. I don't know if it's just, like, I don't know if it's just like, man, the Constitution and the deep state are just so intrinsically so powerful that even Trump can't stop them, but for some reason they won't just flat out just like, I don't know. But yeah, there's not much else for me to say on that, so let's move on to the last news stories, I guess, just so I can, like, you know, talk about, like, 2 incidents that happened, and it is the fact that 2 members of Congress have been attacked by Trump supporters. First, Maxwell Frost was attacked at Sundance, and he was punched by a man who said that Trump will deport him. He's an American citizen, so I don't know where it would deport him to. And then a more famous example, the more high-pressed one, was when, during a town hall, a man walked up to Ilhan Omar and then sprayed her with an unknown at the time substance from a syringe. And, I mean, the first thing that was very interesting, that was very cool, that was very badass, was when Ilhan Omar immediately tried to punch the man and beat the shit out of him. And that's a big thing that is, in my opinion, very important, because this has been building up for a long time. Like, I just gotta say this. Ilhan Omar has been a target of Donald Trump since she got elected. She's the boogie woman for all of the, like, conservative boomers. They're scared of scary Muslim, scary black woman, scary socialist, ooh, spooky. She hits all the things that scare them. Women, black people, Muslims, socialists. She hits all the keys. So naturally, she is the talking points that Donald Trump goes after the most. I forgot to mention immigrant, but yeah, again, she hits all of the scary terms, and as such, she is one of the main targets of Donald Trump. To the point where basically every single MAGA influencer has a very unhealthy obsession of her. Like, they are very basically just completely obsessed with her in every semblance of the word. To the point where they made up a random conspiracy theory about, you know, she marrying her brother, which has no basis in reality. They are making up this they're making this really big thing where it's like, oh, Ilhan Omar got really rich all of a sudden. Interesting. And it's like, apparently it was just because she married someone who was very rich. But one of the most interesting things that happened was, and this is important for one big reason, and I just gotta say it, and it's how Donald Trump responded to this incident. See, the first thing, like when Donald Trump was asked about this incident, Donald Trump, the first thing he said was that he believed that Ilhan Omar had faked this incident. Now, I find that very interesting. Donald Trump, of all the people, should probably understand, you know, violence in the political setting is a very common practice. So why would the first thing out of his mouth be the assumption that she faked this attack? And almost immediately, I now 100% believe that Donald Trump faked his assassination attempt. Like, I mean, I had my doubts before, but he faked it. He absolutely faked it. How did he fake it? I don't know. My guess is that he groomed that one fucking, like, teenage boy to, like, shoot him, and then he became collateral damage. You know, like the statement, like, no loose ends. You know, that and, like, the fact that his ear is perfectly fine. Like, the fact that his ear is, like, literally 100% perfectly fine, even though there was allegedly a bullet that went through it. You know, shh, not important, shh. No. And apparently, while just doing a quick glance at, like, Wikipedia, just to clarify some things that might have happened, apparently, even the fucking, like, head of, like, the Reagan Library claimed that there was a eerie parallel between that alleged assassination attempt against Trump and the Reichstag fire. Interesting development. Now, these two things actually have another comparison to fascism, you know, surprisingly, unsurprisingly, that I'm going to get into. But first, I want to address, like, the one thing that, like, because some people are literally desperately trying to prove, like, you know, oh, it's fake, and they use AI-generated photos of Ilhan Omar and the assassin. Like, I mean, not the assassin, like, he's not an assassin. He, like, sprayed her with a substance that was later revealed to be apple cider vinegar. And people, like, were immediately like, see, that's proof that it wasn't that, and the fact that she got up and, like, the fact that she continued her speech like it was nothing, that was proof. It's like, yeah, and there's also footage of literally Trump's security detail smashing his podium, the assassination attempt, to make the sign knock down, and they lower the flag, and then they usher in journalists right at the moment when it happens, and then Donald Trump, you know, does that whole fucking stupid photo op. But, you know, again, that one, no, that one was real. The Ilhan one, there's no, like, come on, guys. You, again, willing to believe that fucking, like, like, you do know random acts of violence happen, right? Like, that happens. Or not even necessarily, like, random acts of violence, but, like, lone wolf acts of violence happen as well, right? But actually, the fact that it was revealed to be apple cider vinegar actually did make me realize why. Because I was really worried when it was like, oh, they squared her with a substance from a syringe. I was scared. I was like, what the fuck? Did he give her, like, AIDS or something? But then it turns out it was apple cider vinegar, and it's like, oh, okay. But it wasn't like, no, oh, okay, because, you know, the like, people were pointing out, like, this was just, like, a ploy for him to get attention or whatever. But there's actually, I think, more to it, and it's because of something that I personally went through after looking it up, like, after seeing that. Now, if you know anything about apple cider, you know that apple cider can and cannot be alcoholic. And if you just go to the Wikipedia page of apple cider vinegar, it literally says, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. It is made by crushing apples and squeezing the juice. The apple juice is then fermented by yeast, which converts the sugar in the juice to ethanol, which, you know, that's like the first step in the process to, you know, like, literally, ethanol is an active ingredient in alcoholic beverages. It's fermented, alcoholic fermentation. Like, that's literally what it is. And remember, this is important. Ilhan Omar is a Muslim. I don't know if you picked that up, but she's a Muslim. She's a Muslim. And in Islam, you cannot drink alcohol. So, I think this very much proves that this 100% was real, because, of course, a Republican would be stupid enough to not look up the fact that alcohol, like apple cider vinegar is not an alcoholic beverage. Like, I mean, literally, immediately after, like, the whole, like, worry about, like, fucking, like, whether or not it was AIDS in that thing or whatever, my immediate assumption next was literally just, like, oh, it must be, like, something like alcohol or, like, pig grease or whatever, or pig's blood, because, like, you know, people, like, generally, like, just, like, have that, like, image of, like, Muslims, where it's like, oh, they're, like, you know, they're scared of, like, this kind of stuff, but it's like, you know, it's just kind of what it is, but this pretty much confirms that thesis. But the thing that these incidents remind me sort of a thing from fascist Italy, the incident of Giacomo Matteotti. I'm not that good at pronouncing names, but it's like, he's like, if you don't know his story, he was the leader of the Italian socialist opposition to Mussolini, and unfortunately, his story did not have a happy one, because after he was very critical of Mussolini, he was found dead by being beaten up by a bunch of the black shirts. And one of the main historical debates is, like, whether or not, like, his incident was directly ordered by Mussolini, or if it was, like, people who were just, like, really passionate about Mussolini, who were, like, ready to, like, do actions for him. Because, like, I think, like, there's a documentary, like, not a documentary, but, like, a dramatized series about, like, Mussolini and his rise to power, which is very interesting. I think I should watch it at one point, but actually I can't watch it. It's, like, very depressing. But it's a very interesting due to the fact that it ends with Mussolini winning, in the sense that Mussolini, like, it ends right when Mussolini gets power. And Giacomo's death is one of the things that solidifies his power, because what happens is, like I mean, the consensus is usually just like that. These were people who were like the series goes with the consensus that the black shirts acted alone and without his direct, like, behest. But then they, like, told him, like, look, bro, we did this for you, and you have to do something for us now. Like, we are ready. We're ready to go. We're ready to take back Italy. Which then leads to sort of, like, the big speech that caused Italy to officially become a dictatorship. Which is, I should link it. If I do not link it, which I will try to link it. I keep forgetting sometimes to link these kinds of things. But if I don't link it, these are the exact words that you can type into YouTube to look up that scene. Mussolini challenges Parliament. Those are the words. It's a beautiful scene. It's a depressing scene, but it's a beautiful scene, and it's the final scene of the show, where Mussolini basically tells the Parliament, like, he doesn't like admit to doing it, but he basically admits to doing it. He admits to Giacomo's death. Well, not necessarily. Like, he takes responsibility for the actions that had happened in the immediate fascist Italy, and he says very clearly, like, if you want, all I need is which includes Giacomo's death, and he basically says, like, if any of you want to challenge me, all I need is one member of this parliament to declare me, like, I just need one of you to put me in contempt, and then I'll be out of your hair forever. But in doing so, also gives a warning where he's like, if I were to use 1/100th of my power to instigate conflict as much as I have been using my power to prevent it, then you all will be in big trouble. And the black shirts were like in the corridors, basically like standing up and declaring like they're ready. If he gives the word, they're ready. And then he just tells them, like, you know, he has them like they all stare him down, and he basically just literally just demands them, like, somebody, like, and they're like, no one does it. It's like a complete and utter silence, and then he turns to the audience and says, "Silencio," because that's all you need to do this kind of like bad things, for people to not stand up. But I have faith now. Like, Ilhan Omar literally she literally fucking almost decked the guy. I have a feeling that we're in better hands than fascist Italy, apparently. With that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this video. More atheism content? What a surprise! This was the thing that was teased in the teaser that I just realized. But yeah, wonder why I have the feeling to make more content about atheism. And yes, for any of you who have not picked up on any of these subtle clues that I have been revealing over the course of my generation, yes, I happen to be an atheist. Ooh, scary, spooky. I'll leave your shock and awe in the comments below, or whatever. This is probably not a surprise at all. I talk about it a decent bit. Did you see one of my podcasts last year? It definitely got a little bit controversial in the religion sphere. Maybe I should make an atheism playlist on my fucking channel. I should start making a lot more playlists of like specific like areas of expertise. I have a copyright playlist, and even then I don't have it covering all of the news stories or whatever. But regardless, that's a sad point. Yes, I am an atheist. I do not believe in any god whatsoever. Not Yahweh, not Allah, not Krishna, not Vishnu, none of those things. None of them. I also just generally do not believe in any of the supernatural stuff. No ghosts, no spirits, no nothing. For newcomers, or for just a quick refresher, I guess to explain sort of like the past of my, I guess, religiosity or whatever, I was raised technically non-denominationally Christian. Like, I was raised a Christian, I guess, technically. And yes, I don't think officially there was technically a denomination. I mean, I guess technically I did have one. Like, I mean, if you were to have given my youth a denomination, it would technically have to be Catholicism. You know, I was baptized in a Catholic church in Mexico. The lore is I traveled down to Mexico, and I was born in the heart of North Carolina. I had to travel down to Mexico to be baptized in the church of my forefathers. And a majority of all of the churches that I've been to were Catholic. Like, I mean, I've really only been to Catholic churches for like, I guess when I went to Mexico, we did. I guess that was like whenever we went to Mexico, that was usually the only time that we actually did go to church. In America, we didn't really go to church. I guess that might have been a big a special extra thing, because I didn't know what they were fucking saying. Like, literally, I just knew that sometimes we stood, sometimes we sat, sometimes we kneeled, sometimes we shook hands. I don't know what's going on here. They're just saying words and I don't understand it. Although, we did all, like, I mean, again, in America, we usually never went to church proper. Like, I mean, we really only went for, like, to get morbid, we only went for funerals and, I guess, also weddings. We very rarely went to church services for, like, other things. Like, I think at one point we went for, like, Christmas at one point. But, I mean, that was especially weird because I really did not, at that point, I really did not have to go. I mean, I guess I was still under the delusion that people didn't know that I was an atheist at the time. So I was like, I went there to, like, I don't know, go there to see if I could still be, steal trickery. But, nah. And also, there's a lot of, like, Mexican Catholic, like church stuff that, like, is just common, like, just art around my house, like, a lot. Like, you know, Jesus confío en ti and Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe, you know, all that kind of stuff was, like, around. But there was also, you know, like, generic, more like Protestant, you know, influence, because you know, my father, Catholic Mexican in the heart of Mexico, and mother was a I guess technically raised Baptist, but again, basically non-denominational. I mean, she didn't marry a Catholic, but like, you know, that sort of like you know, Protestant, like, coded stuff. You know, like, there was like at one point where I remember having like Bible, like, trivia cards, like, you know, stuff like, you know, it was like fucking, like, stupid, like, art from the Dollar Tree, where it's like, on one art is like, it's like a fucking, like, picture of, like, Jonas, and you read the back and it's like, Jonas was eaten by a whale. No, it wasn't Jonas, right? Was it? I forget. It's Jonah. Jonah was eaten by the whale, not Jonas, not the Jonas Brothers. And, you know, like, generic, like, white Christian art that just kind of, like, is around. Like, I mean, one image that is forever ingrained in my brain, because I remember it from, like, my childhood, and we, like, I've seen this specific art for so long. It's just like, it's ingrained in my brain. It's an art of, like, two children, and they're on a bridge at night, and then a guardian angel behind them is like behind them, like, watch out, kids, she's chasing you, run. like that one, like, you know, if it's not put up, you know the one I'm talking about. You know, if you know, you know. If you were raised in the South, you know stuff like this. But I mean, I guess it was technically more like I don't really know, like, how, like, Hindu or, like, casual the belief system was. Like, I mean, I don't think I really understood. I don't think I really understood. I wasn't, like, part of one of those, like, you know, like, brainwashed evangelical cult camps. But, you know, I believe, like, the basic Christian stuff that, you know, a stupid kid would believe. You know, like, you know, Jesus walked on water, he was whipped and beaten and, like, whatever. Jonas got eaten by the whale. Noah, he built the ark with all the animals and blah, blah, blah. Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Like, that kind of stuff. Like, all that kind of stuff. I kind of, like, just generally believed it, I guess. You know, in the same way a kid going to school is taught, Washington cut down the apple tree. Was it? No, it was a cherry tree. Like, he cut down the cherry tree and said, I cannot tell a lie. You know, it's just kind of like the mythologized stuff that you kind of, like, just ingrain in your brain. And then I did this wonderful thing that really changed a lot of my perspective. Turning 11. Being in middle school was very interesting because, I don't know if this is, like, I guess this has to be the same for a lot of other people, but, like, elementary school is, like, that's the school that's usually, like, the closest to you, like, your most tight-knit community. You're, like, the people you live with, you, like, grow up with. Like, the most intrinsically linked people with your community. Middle schools are more broad, so you get introduced to people for a lot more perspectives. That's where you literally start meeting people. And, again, you turn 11, then soon you turn 12, then soon you turn 13. That's when you're leaving childhood and then joining adolescence. And that's when you start getting introduced to more subjects, like more real subjects, whether it be like through actual teaching, science was always my favorite subject in school, like space, everyone's like, I think a lot of people do that, like space, you like that kind of stuff, you like science stuff, and then, you start learning about things like biology, you start learning about things, like evolution, you start learning about real life, like normal, like real things, and you start being like, you know what? Some of these things they don't really make sense when you put like I was told Adam and Eve, they like ate the apple and they like did all that stuff. I was told that was how it happened, and now I'm being told like we evolved from like these previous creatures through natural selection and DNA. And here's like a scientist with like with an actual like video of like cells. He's like actually recording these cells and like showing us this kind of stuff is real. Meanwhile, Adam and Eve, that's just a fairy tale book. And others just through like, again, the general like, you're expanding your base. Like you're expanding the group of people that you are now interacting with. And as such, now you are getting introduced to more people with vast different perspectives that, wouldn't necessarily fit in with like a closed-minded person. Middle school is when I first started interacting with the gays. And they weren't like the spooky, gross monsters that, Bible thumping typically like lets you believe that they are. Some of my closest friends in middle school, because I guess I was like the weird kid in school, I usually ended up being part of like the social rejects. So, typically that meant also being friends with gay people. Like, I mean, I basically was friends with most, if not all of the rejects, like, those kids with the headphones that would, like, scream every once in a while. I was friends with them in, like, elementary school and stuff. I started learning that, like, some celebrities that I liked were gay, so it's like, but I was told that being gay was, like, this bad thing, and the bad people do it. But this guy not bad, man. This guy was a superhero on a TV show. So how... like, the brain no worky. The lines aren't clicking. The lines aren't lining. Even to the point where I started getting into discussions with my more conservative fundamentalist friends and challenging their perspectives, which also coincided with a rise in technology on a personal and broader level. Smartphones were starting to become a thing, and, online internet videos were becoming way more prominent, and that led me to be exposed to a lot of things online, and not just pornography. I started watching videos about the new atheist and skeptic community, being exposed to their arguments about religion, like The Amazing Atheist, or like Dawkins clips, or like, Armored Skeptic or whatever. And they made arguments that weren't necessarily bad. And now, right before I get into the actual thing that this subject is supposed to be, I know that some of you might get into some like slight ick when you hear like new atheism or skeptic community, but mostly due to the fact that a lot of those communities serve as some slight blame for the rise of the modern day far right somehow. And when I say they did that for the rise of the far right somehow, I'm not saying this in the sense that I'm like denying it. Far from it. I know this happened. I did a literal fucking like video essay, 4-hour video essay, where I literally explained very verbatim like how we went from like online atheist channels to somehow the rise of the far right online. I know that this happened, but it's something that just confuses me to this day. At least only somewhat, because, as someone who actually maintains a lot of the arguments that was like said for like the actual reasons that I thought that they made sense, I come to the more natural conclusions in a lot of other aspects. But the thing is, a lot of the people, of course, like, there's a lot of things to say, one of the big things, like, a lot of the new atheists or like skeptic people were just, scared of Muslims, like, ooh, scary Muslims, and literally saw Christianity as somehow a favorable alternative, despite the fact that many of them got their start literally bashing Christianity. It's how you get people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali converting to Christianity and Richard Dawkins coming out as a cultural Christian. It's how you got people like Christopher Hitchens cheerleading the Iraq War and torture because of the whole rise of, Islamofascism. It's how you got some people like Sargon saying stuff like he is, quote, regrettably not a Christian. It's how you get people like Armored Skeptic becoming massive conspiracy nuts. Their arguments do not necessarily come from, like, the true basis. They come from, But, you can make the argument about whether or not these people were, like, involved for the right reasons and then got corrupted, or if they were all bad faith actors all throughout. But you'll have to go through that individually. That's kind of, like, not here nor there. I make jokes about Fetterman having a stroke and then having brain damage. Richard Dawkins had a stroke and then suddenly is now, like, a far-right transphobe. But, for lack of a better term, I just gotta say it, to an extent, it's because atheism is not, I don't want to say it I don't want to say it because it's like, I don't mean it in the way it means, but I mean, like, in the modern day of the world, religion is seen as the default, even though it's not. The default is when you are born, you do not know what a religion is. You don't know what racism is. You don't know what any of these, like, philosophical or, like, ideological beliefs are. You know nothing, and then all these things are thrust upon you. But yet, in this world, due to the vast majority of people being religious, religion is seen as the de facto normal, the de facto, like, baseline. And as such, technically, arguing against it is a reaction to the, like, established thing. So, when these guys were attacking religion, they were technically coming at it as a reaction, technically being reactionary, technically. Not in the actual sense of the term reactionary, opposing social progress, but in, like, the baseline, thing reacts to it. And yeah, atheism is not is not a religion. You're not arguing for a specific moral whatever. That's, like, why you have atheists from all these different, like, philosophical understandings, like nihilism, existentialism, stoicism, all these different atheists. You have, like, many atheist creators, like, openly go about, like, oh, we don't like nihilism. We're not nihilists, even though some people would argue that nihilism and atheism are very similar concepts to an extent. Like, even the term positive atheism is technically just being so convicted in the lack of proof that you argue for it. Technically, the only person... I don't necessarily know, like, the full ins and outs about, like, each of the individual person's, like, beliefs, but I think, if I remember correctly, the one person who truly, really did seem to be, like, the one guy who, like, really argued, like, atheism is, like, not necessarily, like, argue... I guess I'll just say it. Penn Jillette, the famous, like, magician, he's one of, like, the mainstream, like, arguers for atheism. He used to be also a main arguer for libertarianism, but that's changed. But he's still, like, a hardcore atheist. But his thing was that he literally went he always went one step further. He never, like, he didn't say that he didn't believe in a God. He said that he believes there is no God. But even then, I think that's more of, like, a tongue-in-cheek thing. As he also is the same person who stated that, like, every sane person is an agnostic. So it's like, yeah, that's the point. But we also have to acknowledge, again, like the new atheist and skeptic communities online, those were the forefathers of not just the modern day far right online, they're also the forefathers of BreadTube and, like, that kind of stuff. They all trace their roots back there. And for that reason, I can't just say, like, oh, the new atheist... That's the thing. Like, I've seen a lot of people, like, say, like, things like, like, we need Reddit atheism back, or we need new atheism back, or we need, like, this back. But then people try to go back again and be like, oh, well, no, we don't need that. It's like, yes, we can do without, like, the like, fall to this stuff, but, like, you don't understand what people say when they mean they want new atheism to come back. Because clearly they don't mean repackaging neoconservative Islamophobia, but with a smiley face, like I guess in the similar way that they use, like, pink washing for, like, Zionism, whatever. Clearly they don't mean that. At least I hope not. Because again, like, I can criticize Christopher Hitchens, I can criticize Richard Dawkins, I can criticize can't really think of any other, like, new atheist thinker. I guess TJ Kirk. I can criticize all of them. I can and have and will continue to do so. I think, but you can't deny, like, their contributions to, the thought to, like, I guess, not necessarily philosophical. I guess technically philosophical, but, like, I guess that would be more attributed to, like, Dawkins and, like, Pigeons, not really Kirk. But I mean, even then, I don't really watch a lot of, like, I guess, atheism-focused channels anymore. I think the only one I'm still sub to is Darkmatter2525, and the only one that is still somewhat, like, good, that is, I watched here and there, especially prepared for this video, was Cosmic Skeptic. Cosmic Skeptic's a pretty good one. Like, he's got a noggin on his head. But even then, I don't think either of them really identify with the new atheist, like, or skeptic community, like, anymore. I guess technically Darkmatter2525 still, I guess he still does the style of content that he still may. I mean, he kind of generally just drifted a bit more political content, especially recently. I guess you can't really blame him for, like, doing that. But Cosmic Skeptic especially has made himself known to be, like, he's not necessarily as, like, new atheist focused anymore. I guess I don't know if I would still consider myself, like, I guess that's what the subject of this episode will be, because in this one I'm going to answer, like, the question, why atheism? And through it, I'm going to go over the many reasons why I am an atheist, and not only why I am an atheist, but also why I think that atheism is the objectively best way to do society, or at least, just why I believe that concept, or why I guess, like, it would be it's a mix of a lot of things, like, I guess let's just get into it. It's just going to be a long-winded rant of various different subjects, and hopefully they'll be somewhat coherent for you to understand my perspective, and maybe I'll change some minds. Like, the first one is just the very simple fact: there is no evidence of God. Like, that's the first one. That's the big one. That's the one that has never been fixed. Like, I mean, that's just the big, like, that's it. And that's the really big one. Still, up to this point, ever since I've gone into the subject, I've not seen a single piece of coherent evidence of a God, much less anything that specifically proves that a specific deity exists. Like, one of the main reasons, like, a lot of people, like, criticize, like, like, the skeptic community or the new atheist community for, like, doing, like, the whole, like, debunking religion stuff, but it's like, the point of doing that is to show that on a fundamental level, it has no basis in reality. Like, if you want to prove them wrong, the simplest solution would be to prove them wrong, as in, show evidence that your God is real. And the thing is, like, especially preparing for this episode, I looked, like, I mean, literally, like, randomly one day, at one point, I just randomly thought, have any new, like, arguments for God come up? I mean, a lot of people still believe it, so have there any new arguments come up? I watched a little bit of the Redeemed Zoomer video, and I was just like, no, and then I stopped watching it. And then, in preparation for this video, I'm like, I should probably actually continue watching, or I should probably restart that Redeemed Zoomer video and actually watch the whole thing. And when I watched it, I basically just got the same regurgitated arguments again, even though the whole basis of his video was literally, like, hey, we're debunking the atheist arguments that we're going to debunk them. Like, that was the whole point of the video, was, like, he was going to debunk all of the atheist arguments. Many of those things weren't even really arguments for atheism. They were just, like, tidbits and criticisms of, like, religiosity. But the thing is, like, I have literally seen every single one of those arguments debunked by many other atheists. In fact, I also watched a video afterwards that debunked all the arguments that he made. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll just move on to the next one. I'll just watch it. I'll just watch another one. Maybe Redeemed Zoomer is just stupid. I mean, Redeemed Zoomer is not really necessarily, like, that well liked, but, maybe someone else has a better argument. Then I watched another video, and then while I was watching it, I was just like, this is just Redeemed Zoomer's video again. Like, that's how bad it is. The arguments keep getting regurgitated over and over again. And like, I guess it's just the point. It's just like, these are like arguments that are just going to keep coming back and forth in every single angle. But it's just like, maybe do a good job debunking the atheist arguments at some point. Like, the best case scenario was that I got very poor explanations for arguments that were way more vague in the initial one. Like, for example, like, I'll just go into some of the arguments. Like, one is when he tried to debunk the claim science disproves God. I guess that would be my initial understanding, because, the whole thing is about, the God of the gaps is what has always, historically been the thing. But then science explains more of the things that are, going on in modern society or whatever. Like, it's like, yeah, but like, let's hear that. All right. I mean, I know that would necessarily not be like a real argument because, there's like, people who are Christians who love science and who believe in like, the natural world and stuff, working through God. So you got my point. But let's what's the actual arguments that he makes? And his argument is, well, science only explains what goes on in the natural world. God exists outside of the natural world. It's like, that's your argument? Okay, now it is up to you to prove that this other world exists. And then their argument backs themselves into a corner, because if they're saying like science can only explain things in the natural world, which means there is nothing we can do that can penetrate to explain, like science cannot disprove God, because again, science is the natural world, God is in the outside world. But that's the thing, if that's the case, then you can't use science to prove God's existence. If these are two separate worlds, and the only, I guess, since nothing in this world can be used to disprove the outworld or whatever, then, again, you can't use this world to... this is the problem. It's like, if you're saying... Again, that's the confusing part. It's like, either science cannot disprove God, or... Can it disprove God or not? That's the thing. Can it disprove it or not? If it can't disprove it, then it can't prove it either. And that's one of the main criticisms that a lot of you seem to have. Like, it's one of the things. It's like, it's again, you're trying to pit science and religion. You're pitting it as two antithetical things, and that's one of the things. It's one of the main reasons why a lot of like scientific discoveries that usually contradict the church are usually suppressed. And again, if he's just a coherent idiot, that'd be one thing, but he's not a coherent idiot because he's made other videos where he talks about things like the fine-tuning argument, which is usually a scientific way to explain the existence of God, which is, you can't do that. You can't do that. If it can disprove it, it can't prove it either. They're two separate worlds. God does not exist in the natural world. Science can only prove things in the natural world, so it can't disprove or prove the existence of things in the outer world. Almost as if you had already come to the preconceived conclusion that God is real, and you're just literally using whatever argument you want to prove his existence. And we don't even have to go to another video, because literally in that same video, he uses science to prove God in the sense of evolution is God working through a natural process. But when it comes to the mountains of scientific evidence that prove things like trans people are normal and perfectly acceptable, no, we can't count that. Again, you just have a preconceived notion that you already have, and you're just finding a way to reach that conclusion. The next one is a very big one, where it was like, if God was the creator of us, who made God? Which, a big one, yeah. That's a big one. A lot of people, and let's just get into the response. The response to that argument is, well, God was the causeless causer. I'm serious. That's the actual argument. The argument that is the belief system is that the universe had to have been a creator. It had to have been made by a creator due to every single intricacy in everything. But meanwhile, when you say a deity like God is so perfect and so powerful and so all this stuff, then there must have been a creator behind that. No. he was just there. He was just there. Like, your whole argument falls flat. It's like, I've heard that fucking argument. It was like, a watch had a creator and it was so intricacy, so ergo, you know, we had to have a creator. But then, again, you brush it away with, what? Like, again, I just, like, again, like, the Big Bang had to have been done by God, but somehow God exists beyond that? Like, the weird thing is that they argue as if that makes sense. It does not make sense. It only makes sense if you're a fucking stupid idiot who literally just will accept whatever whatever your fucking, like, creepy uncle tells you. Like, that's literally the only way this makes sense. Like, again, I don't know how you could actually just believe that uncritically and think that you're somehow, like, actually, like, in the... I don't get it. But the one that really got me to fucking, like, laugh, I literally just, like, fucking started laughing when I saw this argument. Like, I mean, that one made me go, like, are you fucking kidding me? That's your argument? That's the argument? Because I'm just so pissed, because it's like, so many people literally just use that argument. It's just like, oh, watch have a creator, ergo we have a creator. It's like, yeah, you do have a creator. It's called when your dad sticks his penis in your mom's vagina. When the sperm touches the egg and becomes the zygote. That's your creation. That is your creator. But that one just made me just confused when they literally just like say that. But again, this is the one that got me to laugh, and it was their response to the question, why does God allow evil? All right, and their response was that the reason why was because God triumphing over evil feels better than evil never having existed at all. I mean, first of all, they try to say, like, well, evil can't... Like, I mean, there's another argument where it's like, but what if God's evil? It's like, well, God can't be evil because evil is just the absence of good. It's like, is it? Like, I mean, I just did a quick, like, wiki glance just to make sure that I wasn't, like, getting it. But, like, that's like an actual literal argument that is made, you know, like, that evil is the absence of good. I guess that's more of like it says it's a theological argument, so it's like, I guess that technically makes sense in that semblance of the thing, but like the term evil in and of itself is like being bad. Like, I mean, bad would be the absence of good, at least on a first glance. Evil seems to like evil implies like beyond that. It's like a complete lack of morality and, you know, advocating of wicked behavior. That's why there are so many, like, beliefs of, like, having evil being, like, a specific, like, having a being of evil, having a specific, like, creation of evil or whatever. But that's not really the point. Like, the point is, like, you know, why does God allow evil to happen? And it's like, well, because God triumphing over evil. I mean, I said it already, but, like, just hearing that again, like, because God triumphing over evil feels better than evil having never existed at all. Like, he actually said that. And unironically just yeah, he just said it. And it's just like, wow. You are point blank telling me that your God is a selfish asshole who allows suffering so that he can feel good when he eventually decides to stop it. And you're telling me that I am supposed to revere and worship him. Like, bro, your religion would have been way better if if the book was written to have Satan, like, exist and then God was coming up to try and stop him or whatever. That would have made your... That's why a lot of these, like when evil is usually portrayed in, like, a lot of media and stuff, they usually have evil be, like, a being or a creation of a specific thing. Because... it makes that is what makes it good, like the triumph over it, not the fact that he created a world to allow this evil and then will eventually settle. Like, he created this makes no sense even then. It's like, he created the evil in the world. He created it. He created a world that allows for the absence of good to happen so drastically that all this suffering happens. And at any point, he can say, hey, let's rein it in a little bit. Like, even not even, like, completely getting rid of it. Like, reining it in a little bit. But nah. He's just gonna, whatever. Who gives a shit? Nah. Like, Cosmic Skeptic made this argument in his video response to Redeem Zoomer, which is simply the point of, the person who's suffering at that particular time period doesn't give a shit about, like, this, let's use a modern day example. Trans members of my audience, every single member of my audience who's transgender, you can comment in the description, you can comment on all the stuff, but tell me, you guys, gals, non-binary pals, are all brought to a room. You're all brought together into a room. And there's 2 buttons. Button 1, you press that button, and it's a world where transphobia never existed. Never at all. It just doesn't exist whatsoever. Or button 2, the world where transphobia does exist. And you have so many risks of coming out to people, statistically being more likely to be hate crimed, but maybe, hypothetically, one day we will triumph over this evil. Which button do you choose? The one where you don't have to worry about, like, a third of the country literally wanting you fucking dead, or being, like, an inferior being? Or to live in the world where nobody thinks that? This question is obviously rhetorical because we all know the answer, and you're all smashing the button really fast trying to figure out, like, when is this world happening? Come on! For those of you who care about the Palestine issue, would you rather live in a world where the Palestine issue never happened and, like, the 70,000 Palestinians that were murdered weren't murdered, and, we lived in a world where there was no reason for there to be fighting for a free Palestine? Or would you rather live in the world where we get to one day triumph over Israel? If you actually care about the issue presented, the answer is obvious. And by that notion, would that not mean that God is clearly selfish and in it for his own gain? And what's interesting is, like, this isn't even just, like, because this is the thing, like, I have, to the best of my ability, tried to maintain, like, some form of, like, research into these kinds of subjects, and, like, not just necessarily the places that I've already been, but I also, like, expanding my horizons in this sphere. And, whether it be, like, things like science, like, doing research into stuff in science that I never really knew about before, like, gender sciences and stuff, regarding the history of gender, like, studies and stuff, like, that kind of stuff. As much as I can. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm, to dumb people, I am a smart guy. To smart people, I'm a stupid idiot. And the more research I do in a lot of subjects in regards to this field, things become a lot less proven, like how I ever so slightly dabbled in the Christ myth theory a little bit, and then went full on in the deep end on it. To the point where I literally dedicated an entire there's a little bit here and there, I think I'm trying to figure out if I have, like, an actual timeline for, like, my belief in the Christ myth theory. I guess I could delve in a little bit about that, but I guess initially maybe I kind of believed it, but, like, more as not necessarily, like, believing it. Then I kind of, like, did some slight research here and there, mostly the wiki page, to kind of look into that. But mostly just kind of, like, did, like, a quick glance, not really, like, doing a further in development. Then in a previous, I don't know if I talk about it in, like, my conspiracy episodes. I think I might have dabbled in it a little bit. Like, I was like, I kind of looked into it, and, that makes some arguments, and I don't really know much about it. But then I made a video where it's like a podcast called Why Religion is Still Bad. It wasn't really that well put together. I don't even think it really answered the question that I posed in the title, but, it was basically just like a religious rant, and in it, I did talk a little bit about the Christ myth theory, and I basically, like, I think I did look into it a little bit, just like, debunking like the two main like arguments. Then last year I went full on deep end and decided, hey, let's actually look further into it in way more than I have ever done. And well, people were not a fan of the conclusion I came to. If you want a more in-depth analysis on that, you should watch that podcast if you want to, or better yet, if you want like an actual like understanding of like the theory itself. I mean, I guess like if you want more of an understanding of like the theory itself, I recommend watching the documentaries I link in the description of that podcast, or maybe even go so far as to like read some of the books from some of the main authors of the like theory, like Robert Price, Richard Carrier, Tom Harper, I think, yeah, that's his name, Tom Harper. Keep an open mind just to like, at least hear the arguments out, and then, you can also like fact check it with other sources, because, sometimes the sources, sometimes the sources, go against each other, sometimes the sources go against, other main like historians or whatever. But for a quick TLDR, for any of you who don't want the time to like watch that podcast after you're clearly seeing the length of this podcast, the Christ myth theory is the hypothesis that the story of Jesus Christ is not real. And while there's a lot of varying interpretations about it, the general consensus is that the story, the myth of Jesus Christ, was actually borrowed partially, if not completely, from various other historical myths and legends. Common examples are like Horus, Dionysus, Krishna. Buddha's name gets thrown out there sometimes. Other messianic like cults of the time period, usually stemming from the fact that the historical evidence of Jesus is lacking. And again, there are similarities between Jesus and other stories and fairy tales from that time period. With, again, a lot of varying interpretations, about why this happened. Because, again, like, similar to, like, how atheists can come to, like, vast different conclusions in a lot of other elements. Because, again, they're not united behind a, like, the coherent thing. They're united behind a debunking of something else. In the same vein, a lot of Christ myth theorists, they don't necessarily agree with each other on a lot of things. And, they very frequently get into clash with each other. Again, watch that podcast. That one goes in a little bit about the fact that a lot of them really fucking hate each other because they're like, no, you're fucking, like, you're absolutely wrong. This is, like, an absolutely ahistorical, like, piece of shit book. But then it's like, oh, but my book, oh, no, this one's real. But, the main ideas is, like, one, either, like, it was just a natural thing that kind of happened. And some people theorize that it was, like, a plot by the Romans to pacify people from rising up against them. A sentiment that actually believers in my comments kind of, I don't know if they agreed with like my thesis in the video, but like there was like a commenter. I asked like I did a poll where I said like, is Jesus Christ real? And I gave like the four options. Was like, yes, he's real and the Messiah. Yes, he's real, but a historical guy did nothing else. He's not real at all, and agnosticism, like, I don't know if he's real. And there was a commenter that literally said like that Jesus was real, but that the Christianity was made up by the Romans. It's like, see, it seems there's a lot of sentiments out there, and yeah, like due to a lot of factors, this theory is not exactly the most popular, religiosity of the world, like the general like vastly different interpretations from the various different thinkers. I think there's one guy who literally said like he believes that Jesus Christ was like a figment of a cult who was on mushrooms. Like a bunch of like people in ancient like times took a bunch of mushrooms and then they hallucinated the whole Jesus like thing. Like, I mean, like, yeah, and it's a similar thing with like a lot of like, new it's like sometimes they say things like, oh, this makes sense. Sometimes they say things like, oh, kind of like, I guess, I don't know if I should like say like my specific interpretation of like what I think was the true story or whatever. Because even then, even as I like say like, I bring up the theory and stuff, I was like, I'm not like 100% convinced by it. Obviously, I obviously see where a lot of these guys are coming from, due to early history being a lot more lax, which raises a lot of questions about Jesus' historicity. And, I see where they're coming from. Like, I'm just saying, like, I mean, I basically bring it up to be like, look, I'm not saying that it's real. I'm just saying it's mighty interesting. But I also acknowledge a lot of factors, like just generally, like, history of that ancient time is just naturally going to be a lot more lax. So, of course, there's going to be gaps that are going to be there regardless of whether or not Jesus was real or not. Even coming to the conclusion that there's not really a point in debating the topic, and it's really just more of an expansion of, like, the philosophical debate about religion. That's basically where I come from when I discuss, like, the Christ theory. It's more of, like, it's again, just, to me, a expansion of the philosophical debate about religion. Like, I mean, if like tomorrow there's, like, definitive proof that Jesus Christ is real, then there's really no point. But again, I don't think that there really will be. Like, I mean, like, the technical term for what my beliefs on the subject is called Jesus agnosticism, where it's like, if there was a historical Jesus, the definitive proof of it that would, like, the definitive thing that would prove his existence is just gone, and we'll never find it. Combined with the mythological, fuck, you get what I'm saying? With the massive mythology surrounding Jesus's, like, lifetime, and the fact that even, like, elements of, like, the things that are, like, his alleged real life being borrowed from other thinkers and, like, other elements, it does raise, again, it raises enough questions to the point where it's just like, I don't know. But I would also, like, say, like, a person who's, like, gonna come up with, like, a specific, like, if they just want to replace one thing with another, then it's just like, yeah, don't buy. Like, for example, like, Richard Carrier, like, dismissing all the other Christ myth theories as, like, BS or whatever, and then, like, the Atwill, like, doing the same thing with Richard Carrier, like, them all, like, shitting at each other, like, relentlessly, like, that kind of, like, shows, like, maybe there's a bit more to, like, what they say than, like, the actual truth of the matter. Because, again, I see where a lot of these guys are coming from. And, again, like, I mean, if I were to give, like, an actual answer, like, if I were to say, like, what I believed happened at the time period or whatever, it would seem to me that the most likely scenario was that the various religious, like, mythological elements that were happening at the time period, of various different outlooks, influenced the creation of what we would dub today as Christianity, and whether it was influenced directly by a guy who was leading a messianic cult at the time period, or it was just generally like just attached to, like, just the general concept of messianic cult is one thing, and clearly the Romans had some element of influencing its spread to an extent. Because, again, there's so much there. It's like, like, you see so many, again, I guess you should just watch that whole one. This will turn into, like, a massive rant about the whole theory again if I don't move on. But, like, again, you get what I'm saying. You can either call me stupid, cringe, or, crazy or whatever. But that's the point. I fully acknowledge I could be 100% fucking wrong. I could fully acknowledge, like, there could be, like, a piece of it, like, we'll never know the truth, but we'll never know the truth, so it's really just, like, more of an extension of, like, the philosophical debate about the existence of God. But I will say, I don't think that this theory should be immediately thrown out. It should be brought up, even if you are going to bring it up and then use all these sources to say, like, oh, this is why this doesn't work, whatever. But by all means. Again, by all means. But all of that goes into just generally being like, I can't base my lifestyle on an ideology, like my lifestyle or whatever, anything, on something that just is not proven and by nature is unprovable, whether it be the existence of a actual deity in the sky or the existence of, like, the specific deity that may or may not have been there, being espoused by people who have a very vested interest in lying about this, something that I need to put my faith in without any form of evidence to back it up. Redeemed Zoomer used the example of, well, you have faith that the food that you eat won't poison you, but there's a reason for that, because we have these things called food regulations in the nation, and a very vested interest in the restaurant in not poisoning you, lawsuits, and getting you to come back and repeat business. I try to base most of my belief system on stuff that I think has been proven to work. I've said this before, I like to try and base my, thinking on, facts, logic, and whatever. I try to, to the best of my ability, and I just give some examples. Medicare for all. Well, most universal healthcare systems work significantly better than the private market, and that is backed up almost universally by the data. There have been studies that have shown that we would save money both personally and massively as a nation if we were to switch to a single-payer model, and literally every single other nation in the world has better healthcare than us, and clearly it's working out better for them. There are some people who like to argue, well, specific individual issues, but their issues are not as bad as ours. Drug reforms. Well, most countries that are not us take less punitive measures on drug issues, do things that are better than all the extreme punitive measures. Mexico and the United States have had a drug war with the drug cartels since 2006, and the drug cartels have only gained more power. There are no drug cartels in Norway, places where they literally, there are places around the world that have legalized, if not decriminalized, many drugs, and it allows safe injection sites for drugs, and there are no drug cartels there. Interesting. And yet the United States has some of the most punitive drug laws, and so does Mexico, and yet somehow there's a massive drug cartel problem. Maybe, hypothetically, we should try doing the thing that works and not the thing that doesn't work. Vaccinations. The COVID era made many people's minds explode because people asked people who understood science but you actually blindly follow the vaccines and this blah, 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 blah. It's no, we don't blindly follow and trust the vaccines. In fact, actually, if you remember correctly, there were a lot of, very early on, there were a lot of people on the left that were a little bit more critical of, taking the vaccine immediately. They waited a little bit, but there's a reason for that. I, like many other people in the United States, was looking at every single fucking vaccine statistic from reputable scientific journals at the time, just so we get an actual understanding of what the vaccine is, what the vaccine does, and we were listening to the scientists explain hey, here's what this vaccine is and what this vaccine does, and it's okay, here's this this person's 30 million year credibility of this particular issue. This has been working on this particular type of vaccination thing for 30 years or whatever. It's okay, and you look into it, you do your research, you actually do your research, not blindly listen to some random fucking TikToker. I literally remember, before I got one specific COVID dose, I don't remember which one it was, but during one time where I was gonna get a COVID dose, I literally decided to research I spent the entire night prior looking at every single study in regards to the alleged myocarditis issue that was going on, quote unquote, that I could find. And it was only after I had finished doing all the research that I had concluded that it was massively overblown by people who did not understand it. Which is true if you look at any single study in regards to COVID. In a political sense, I was originally pretty hesitant to become a socialist because I did not know if socialism was the right way to govern society. Because again, I had only heard of socialism through the advocacy, not really through any of the actual government done by socialism. And the only examples of socialism, quote unquote, that I saw were examples of it not working, like the Soviet Union. And then I decided to do research into all these so-called socialist governments around the world, Lula being elected in Brazil, Evo Morales, Hugo Chavez, Sankara, actually looking into Cuba and not listening to the just blindly following the United States propaganda, actually reading it, actual things about how their governments work, poverty was dropped by this percent by this government, socializing this particular oil industry led to a rising profit of blah, 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 blah. Doing all this stuff. It's okay, I'm starting to see it. I didn't just read Capital and then go, got it. I believe this 100%. No. Far from it. Again, you have to, it's a similar, again, I don't I'm very critical of those who say just read theory. I don't think theory is good. I fucking hate, just reading theory. That's just blindly following a religious book. No, do ideology, put it into practice. Let's see how it works in practice. Another reason why I'm an atheist and not really a, religious person is because that was more of like the understanding of like the actual like, I guess for lack of a better term, like the scientific reason why. This one is more of like just, I guess, like it more of like what it represents. And that's the fact that religion has caused way more harm than good in this world. I will say this till the end of the earth, and I will continue to say it, because it's true. To quote Christopher Hitchens, I am an anti-theist. I not only maintain that all religions are versions of the same untruth, but I hold that the influence of churches and the effect of religious belief is positively harmful. Yes, that is true. Religion teaches you to be ignorant, to ignore facts, all on the basis of blindly following someone on top. Your pastor, the politician that claims the divinity of God works through them, etc. And all of this is done to oppress people on the bottom for the benefit of the people on the top. Another quote I saw that was very inspiring was, "They promise you heaven later so they can control you now." And you don't have to take my word for it, because in Redeemed Zoomer's video, he explicitly says the game plan. Like, he just explicitly says it, and just, you listen. Like, I mean, I guess you can't listen. I'm not going to play it because, I'll link it. But, like, again, it's very important to understand this. I think I'm actually, like, timestamp it specifically to this argument, because it's just, like, the fact that he just flat out says this without taking any semblance of understanding is just fucking weird. Like, the argument that was made that atheist countries are more prosperous, in referencing the fact that a lot of countries that are not religious, or like not outwardly religious, like have very high irreligion, like, again, like the Nordic model countries specifically, like they prosper very much. And his response to the claim was, one, not only claiming that, they're actually, the Nordic countries are actually prosperous because of their Christian roots. Has nothing to do with the Nordic model by any means. No, ignore that part. It has to do with their religion. But also states that the explicit reason why these nations are so irreligious is because their needs are being met. Like, he just says it. He just flat says, in a nation where your needs are being met, you do not feel the need to turn to God. So, again, you admit that the only way for your ideology to continue is for people to suffer? Which is a sentiment held by a lot of other, like, religious... I mean, that is literally, like, the basis of, like, the Christian death cult, essentially. That suffering is the key to living a good life. That's literally the point. It's like, he died on the cross, so, like, Jesus died on the cross, he suffered on the cross, and that's how you maintain your own personal suffering. Like, I am facing my cross. And another way is that it's like religion ultimately is like the ultimate way to force compliance and subservience through a lot of ways. Like, very obviously, there's the one of, like, just a flat out threat of holy retribution by the hands of the people if they need be, and others, coming at it from a more, like, other perspective. It's like, if God had a problem with, like, even though, again, they try to argue, like, God can't do it, but it's like, if God had a problem with what was happening, they fix it. Like, it's because, again, like, on one end, they claim, God doesn't, do any of these bad things. God feels good triumphing over evil later. But then also they say that, hurricanes are because God is mad at someone for doing a specific thing. Or in a more common sentiment, people just saying, just like, right, if a bad person does a bad thing to them, just like, don't worry, their time is coming. Like, just that. Like, not, like, don't do anything about it. Their time is coming. They will at one point face punishment, just not now. The big man upstairs is gonna punish them. So there's basically no point in, like, trying them for any of their crimes because, I think it's literally, like, an argument that has been made. I think it's an argument that has actually been made for, like, old war criminals. So it's like, at this point, is there any reason to punish them? When it's like, you're just, whatever, that's beside the point. That's sort of like, again, like, the reason why, I mean, people complain about, why are a lot of people stupid nowadays, especially with the rise of the internet and stuff. It's like, guys, we can't complain about that. We live in a society where we allow people to unironically believe that women were made from Adam's rib, that a man flew into heaven on a flying horse, and that a man walked on water and just let it go unchecked. You can't complain about the rise of anti-intellectualism. Your specific interpretation of religion might be different, whatever, liberation theology, or I might believe in God, I'm gonna be a believer, but I don't deny science or whatever. It's but yeah, at one point, you have to stop. At one point, you can't question it. You see, even then, at one point, you just stop. You just stop, and it's you accept the religious argument at face value, and then just stop there. But what if, at one point, they go and disprove that part? Are you going to change your mind? I'm not sure. Aside from having a religious fundamentalism, aside from that, and you might feel again, you might be special, liberation theologist, or maybe being a minority, a religious minority in a country is one thing, standing up against the existing religious authority of your nation, but that's a rarity. In a lot of senses, ultimately, you are, more than likely, you are the dominant religion of your society, a very high likelihood, and are you really going to question that? Are you, at one point, you being subservient to that religion, can you really be critical of, the religious, system as it exists today if you are subservient to that religious system? Ultimately, if you're a Catholic, and the Catholic Church says, that was the big conspiracy theory, the worry at the time. If the Pope says this, what do you do? And sure, maybe U.S. Catholics might not be completely subservient to the Catholic Church in Italy, but if you are an active member of your specific Catholic Church, are you going to be as questioning of that specific Catholic Church? Or if you're good, again, you might be a special one. I would be critical of the Catholic Church in this instance. But you don't represent a majority of them. An example of which comes in twofolds, comes with the Redeemed Zoomer video. Again, in the video, he flashes, an example of literally both elements of this, really just shows well in the Redeemed Zoomer video, when he talks about, he flashes a section when he wants to reject the notion of religious oppression and violence. When people bring up wars were started by religion, a lot of religious persecution happens. He basically wanted to do actually atheists did way worse when referring to people like Stalin, Mao, and in a brief flash, Hitler. And there are multiple different refutations and arguments for that. One being, the atrocities that Stalin, Mao, and Hitler did had absolutely nothing to do with atheism, with it being merely a deflection of the point being made. And also, Redeemed Zoomer is a pathological fucking liar. Hitler was not an atheist. I will die on this hill because I am right. Hitler very publicly and privately rejected atheism, arguing that the natural order had to be explained beyond science. To quote him, "Thus people discovered the wonderful concept of the Almighty, whose rule they venerate. We do not want to train people in atheism," is what Hitler said about atheism, again, in private. And in his #1 bestseller, he was quoted as saying, "I believe today I am working in the spirit of the Almighty Creator by fighting the Jew. I fight for the Lord's work." In fact, that was literally one of the primary motivations for the anti-Semitism in Nazi Germany. The deicide accusation. He was baptized Catholic. He had the Nazi party put religious phrases on the belts of the Nazi. Many Nazis flat out advocated for a new denomination of Christianity called Positive Christianity. Very clearly, the Nazis painted themselves as a Christian movement and used it as a tool to spread their ideas. But the Nazis would attack the Catholic Church later in the regime, I hear you typing. No shit they did. After they got rid of the actual political opposition, now the next target was the new opposition. The only other, they got rid of the socialists, they got rid of the communists, they got rid of all the political parties that would oppose them. So the only institution that was left to be opposed to the Nazi army, the Nazi regime, was the regime of the church. But Hitler and his followers, the top Nazis, believed in XYZ. That contradicts Christianity. could that not be explained by Hitler having a slightly different interpretation of Christianity than you? Or the fact that he's like not necessarily like a coherent like thinker? Again, I mean, I have Christian family members who talk about like being reincarnated and stuff. Like, I mean, guys, remember, the Nazi ideology is not a coherent ideology. Like, fascism is not a coherent ideology by any means. So, shock of all shocks, there's a good chance like maybe he wasn't exactly as coherent in his religious beliefs either. Which gets into the discussion of like the discourse about like, oh, well, those guys weren't real Christians, which is kind of like one of the main theses of like trying to save religion from people abusing it. Basically it's like, oh, well, Hitler obviously wasn't a real Catholic, or Ben Gvir wasn't a real Jew, or Osama bin Laden wasn't a real Muslim, or the junta in Burma, the junta in Burma aren't real Buddhists. Modi's not a real Hindu, like all that kind of stuff. It's like, one, why do you get to dictate that? Why do you, of all people, get to dictate who is a real and not real person of the belief? Like, why can't they say that about you? Why can't they say that about you? What makes your specific interpretation of a book that's like 1 million years old different from theirs? You're just two people looking at the same fairy tale with a slightly different viewpoint, trying to reach a conclusion that you may have already reached. You can't accept the concept that you don't understand. Like, this is the truth. At best, these religious books are philosophy books. That's the best case scenario of what they are, or what they actually are. And as such, there are people who can interpret that philosophy differently from other people, even if they themselves believe that they are an adherent to that philosophy. The difference is I can accept that. For some reason, I don't know why you can't. Like, I'm not going to sit here and claim that Stalin wasn't an atheist, or Dawkins wasn't an atheist, or Theodore Herzl wasn't an atheist. I'm not going to deny that. Because, yeah, you can be an atheist and also be a bad person. Much in the same way, you can believe a specific fairy tale and be a bad person. Let's use the example of Mother Teresa. Would you say Mother Teresa is a real Christian? Well, her specific belief in Christianity dictated that the sick must suffer like Christ did on the cross, which led her to provide inadequate health care to the people that she was supposed to be helping, and stealing money from people who were donating to her. Like, literally, people were donating to her to, like, help all these sick people, and they were like, all these sick people keep dying under your watch. Where's the money going, Mother Teresa? And then, when she got sick, magically, she had to get all the best medical care in the world. Again, religious, coherence in its finest. Least hypocritical religious person, apparently. And two, to address that point, so what? Like, I mean this makes a lot of sense. So what if every single Republican politician is faking their Christianity? Does that remove all of the harm that is done in the name of Christianity? Moreover, does it negate the fact that the religion offers them the perfect cover to espouse their beliefs? I mean, literally, think about it. Like, the common trend, like, everyone points out this common trend that has been going on very recently, especially. Person is one way. They're a very specific person. And then they have a rape or abuse allegation that comes out. Then, magically, the person finds God. And then, when they do, again, it's supposed to be like their, like, revision. Like, they fix themselves. The list goes on and on. Russell Brand, P. Diddy, Andrew Tate, Kenneth Petty, etc. Like, the fact that the religion in of itself provides that cover, isn't that a little bit of a problem in and of itself? And you can't complain that this happens. Religions have been covering, like, rapists and pedophiles the whole time. Don't you remember the massive scandal of one of the largest religious denominations having, like, the massive scandal that happened with one of the biggest religious denominations in the United States and in the world in the 2000s? Don't you remember that? Their leader had to resign due to how bad that scandal was. Like, who cares if they actually believed the lie? To use an example that's not necessarily religious, but we'll get back to the religion in a second, is the well-known politician George Wallace. We all know him for his famous hardcore segregationist views. Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. He let the KKK roam free in his state, murdering black children, even hired a Klansman to work for him. That was his big thing. But after the 1960s, Wallace and his family made the claim that Wallace had reformed. That was one of the original things. First one was a big obvious one. I'm a born-again Christian. After he got shot and paralyzed, he became a born-again Christian. All of a sudden, magically it changed. Magically, he was no longer racist. But one bigger thing that has actually been interesting is that this one that really, really hit me. It was I watched a documentary about George Wallace. I was just interested to see the documentary about him. And the documentary, his family, his son, his daughter, I think his wife, I don't know if his wife was in it or not, but it couldn't have been his wife. I mean, it might have been I guess he might have gotten remarried, but they basically were all going on and on and on about how George Wallace was never racist. And then I did further research, and that's one of the things that George Wallace actually, one, he kept saying that he was not racist, when he was espousing all the racism. But literally, even after his reform, he made the claim that he was never racist. But one step further, it's then what was all that racism about? He basically explained that he just used the racism as a ploy to get elected. That he just said, he will never be out N-word again. That was the quote that he said. As if that somehow makes it better. No, it does not make it better. It literally does not make it better. And that's one of the main elements of fascism in any sense of the word. Nobody on top believes a single thing they say. It's just a ploy for power. But further down the totem pole you go, you get the true believers. And a couple of them get sprinkled into all, positions of power. But mostly they represent the bottom of the movement. It doesn't matter if you're one of the special Christians who sees Trump as a liar and a con man. 63% of Protestants, 59% of Catholics, and 82% of evangelicals approve of him when push comes to shove. Now, you could make the case they're all just lied to. All of them were just lied to. All of them are wrong. All of them just didn't interpret the book right. But at that point, are you the one who's interpreting the book right? If so many people are interpreting it vastly incorrectly, then are you not the wrong? Are you not the one interpreting it wrong? This is the Christianity we know and what it represents. You can argue against it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You're losing the battle. Much of the same way, it's I could make the argument about the Christ myth theory all the time. I'll do it all day. I'm losing the battle. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do the argument at all, but I'm just saying, in the push comes to shove, I'm losing the battle even on the atheism side. A good example, a further piece of evidence comes from the scandal about the priest being an ICE agent, and people protesting at the congregation alleging hypocrisy that the man who would preach Leviticus 19:34, the foreigner who resides with you must be like you, a native citizen among you, so you must love him as yourself because you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God, is gladly fighting for the exact opposite of what Jesus or God allegedly espoused. And the Christians in the congregation and all around the United States of America were mad. Not at the piece of shit ICE agent, but the protesters who disrupted him, saying, now's not the time for that. No, you can't do that. Yeah, you can't do that. That's not the right time. You shouldn't do that at a place of worship. Meanwhile, Jesus did literally the exact same fucking thing in the Bible. He went into a place that claimed to be a church and was like, this place is bastardizing the word of God, and literally started tossing tables around. I mean, yes, sometimes we can judge people based on their actions rather than their words. If a person claims to be a socialist, but almost exclusively supports Trump and all the things that he does and bashes things that socialists do, maybe the guy is not a socialist. But it gets to a certain point, when the fighting is meaningless, much less by flat out lying. Back to Hitler, if you want to describe Hitler's religion with a one-word answer, the only two words you can say are Catholic or deist, not atheist. Like, I just brought this up to, like, clear it up. Like, no, he's not an atheist. He's not. Like, the best case scenario is that he was a deist, not a Catholic. I bet that's the best case scenario you have. Because both in public and private, he's made it very clear that he is not a person who is an atheist. He's made it very clear that he was a person who believed in a God and at least had some influence of his Catholic upbringing to hate Jewish people. Indicative that he was at least a cultural Christian to the point where when he was creating his perfect society, literally, not necessarily the state religion, but the fact of the matter was he was using religion, or at least making Christianity like basically the de facto form of like the religion, even if it's just on the base level of the traditional values. And the thing is, we have no clue. I don't have access to Donald Trump's brain mind. I don't have access to Donald Trump's hidden messages. I don't know what he said behind closed doors, so I don't know if he's actually a Christian or not. But from all of his public statements that I have access to, and all the things based on all the things that we have of him, he is a Christian. Donald Trump is a Christian. If you had to describe the religion with one word, you can't claim that he's not a Christian. Because publicly, and as far as we know, privately, he is a Christian. Itamar Ben-Gvir is Jewish. Mohammed bin Salman is Muslim. The guy who's leading the coup in the junta in fucking Burma, they are Buddhist. They might not be your specific flavor of these religions, but unfortunately, these are the guys who are on the stage who are espousing those religions. These are the people who get to do that. In the US specifically, the concept of a good Christianity kind of died the second Christianity became the establishment. No, scratch that. It died the second the Roman Empire became Christian. Which is why the theory that the Romans made Christianity so popular. Christianity now represents all the pain and suffering that all these places, the Roman Empire, all these places, the U.S. have inflicted on people for years. With all the, especially attachments, the U.S. is the claim, U.S. is a Christian nation. So so a Christian nation allowed for massive imperialism of all of these people. It allowed for all this pain and suffering all these years. A Christian nation did that. And I know what some of you might be going in the comments to go, what about good Christians? What about good Muslims? What about good Jews? What about good Buddhists? What about good Sikhs? What about good Hindus? Blah, blah, blah. What about them? Literally, what about them? You think I don't know they exist or something? You think I don't know Hugo Chavez, Fernando Lugo, John Brown, Emiliano Zapata, Gamal Nasser, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Keith Ellison, Robert Drinan, Gandhi, Subcomandante Marcos, MLK, Malcolm X, Eugene Debs. You think I don't know they exist? You think I'm not aware of the concept of a religious person being good or having a correct philosophical outlook in the world? But notice how a lot of those good religious figures are dead? Interesting. And in a similar vein, how you can say Stalin and Mao's badness cannot necessarily be attributed to or blamed on their atheism, can their goodness be credited to these people's religiosity? In some cases, yes, John Brown and Hugo Chavez are probably the most obvious examples, but, sometimes it's just happenstance. But even then, it doesn't make the institution magically better. A good cop who turns in all the other cops in his one that are corrupt, that doesn't necessarily make the entire institution of policing, good. And the last major way to kind of look at it is through my personal philosophy / ideology in regards to this. And granted, a lot of it was influenced by my atheism. Again, similar thing. I get it. Sometimes your philosophy in regards to other things can also influence your broad philosophy in other aspects. But this is just to explain let's just get into it. In a political sense, I am a socialist. I know, shock of all shocks. Hot take. And I explained it in that old video that I made last year. It's in my basic sense, I believe that if people are hurting, we should help people. And some people argue, well, that would be a somewhat religious one. But no, I do not have a religious bone in my body, so that is not why I believe that is the good thing. But in a more basic sense, a socialist, the ideology of socialism advocates that the current social hierarchy is bad, and we must do things to fix it. Fix society so that these social hierarchies are at least either fairer or flat out gone if they cannot be made fairer. And the reason being is because I believe that most, if not all, the social hierarchies that exist in current society exist to hurt people on the bottom to benefit people on the top. The hierarchy of the rich, the hierarchy of imperial powers, and, in the most basic sense, the hierarchy of God. In the realm of reality, that means the hierarchy of religious authority and institutions that are pushed onto us and stuff like that. Opposition to, like, the power that the church has over all of these institutions in, like, the world. Especially when they are used to harm people, religion being used as a way to oppress minorities and stuff. But this is where I'm going to have to channel a little bit of Penn Jillette and, like, Hitchens and, like, broad anti-theism and stuff like that, just to go one step further. Like, allow me to entertain the possibility that he is real. Like, allow me to entertain that possibility. Then, my philosophy would extend to be oppositional to him. If God is the ultimate being that controls all, he is the one that made the world as it exists. He's the one who allows the world to be made as it is now. He chooses to make millions suffer and allow a few select people reap the benefits. Like, bro, I advocate for, like, protesting against, like, the fucking US president and stuff. Like, I advocate for stuff like that. I advocate for, like, protest direct action, that kind of stuff, even if it's, like, a voting thing. Like literally on the most basic level, that is where it is. But if God is real, and God is the one in charge, and God is the one on top, then why should he also not feel the people's will? You say Jesus is king, well, I bow to no king. That might be a hot take, but that is true. Like, that is the truest extent. Like, if you are a socialist, and you believe that social hierarchy is bad, then God is the ultimate social hierarchy. 99% versus 1%. He is the literal definition of the 1%. Now, again, he's not real, so of course, that's not really a thing. It's just more, again, the philosophical understanding of, like, the just influence of the church broadly. If God is not dead, then we have to be the ones to kill God. And, speaking of, in a philosophical sense, I am a nihilist. I have a full podcast on that issue as well. But that means that I do not see an inherent meaning of life, which is obviously influenced by my, lack of a belief in a deity. I don't think that there is another life of reward waiting for us on the other side. I don't believe that there's, like, a magic man in the sky that wrote down rules that we have to follow, and nobody is going to save us except us. Some may hear this and get sad. Some might hear this and think it's a bad thing. That's one of the main, like, things about nihilism. Like, it's, like, perceived to be, like, the emo philosophy or whatever. But that's the thing. I don't really, like, even, like, I mean, literally, as I've done more research into nihilism and stuff, I actually feel way happier. I'm not kidding. Like, I think nihilism really is, like, one of the most, nihilism, almost like atheism, is, like, one of the most liberating things you could possibly be. And I'll get to that by going a little bit into science. Like, okay, like, this is just a funny, interesting thing that really hit me at one point. It's like, do you know, on a very basic scientific level, how likely it is that you exist? Like, literally, you existing as you do right now. Do you know how statistical likely that is? Practically zero. I mean, literally, it's like there are 3 billion base DNA pairs that can be shuffled in almost infinite combinations. And through the luck of the draw, they all came together to make you. And through the luck of the draw, that same thing happened to your mom. That same thing happened to your dad. The same thing happened to their parents, and their parents, and their parents, and their parents, etc., etc. Like, and so much had to happen in order for you to get to that point. Like your dad had to have like met your mom at that specific time so that they could start their relationship at that specific time, and they had to get ready and get busy at that specific moment to specifically get so that your genes, and you had to swim at that specific speed so that you got to the egg first. like, to an extent, I almost get why, if you actually do read and understand, like, science, you might think for a second, like, that had to be, like, a big, like, plan. Because it's like, there is so much that truly had to happen for this, for, like, and, like, again, for everything to happen at this moment in this world, things had to have been a specific, like, things had to happen very specific ways in every sense of the word, from a macro level to a micro level. And that, combined with the infinite size of the universe, really makes us realize that we are basically nothing. I'm pretty sure you will have, if you grew up in, like, the 2000s, you had to do this in school, but, like, there's a website called Scale of the Universe. It literally shows, like, humans, and, like, literally you zoom in and zoom out of the universe. And it's just like, we are so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And yet also, we are some of the most significant people in the world, because the only way we can even perceive this reality is by existing. Like, to me, I am the most important person in the world, because if I died, I can't perceive the world. But obviously, in a macro sense, I am nothing. And I got the luck of the draw that nearly infinite people don't get. There are so many people who literally, again, like, just, we are literally statistically, the fact that I exist as I am now, in any semblance of the word, is basically zero. I don't register on the statistic. And the statistic of so many people who literally have never even gotten the chance to exist just eclipses any number I could think of. And the fact that that was just a random happenstance is amazing. That's actually fucking beautiful. And the fact that one day I will not exist anymore is also beautiful in a very strange way, because, again, I get, like, I mean, I literally listened to a fucking Richard Dawkins quote that not that long ago, and it actually was fucking amazing. It's like, one day you will die, and you're lucky, because there are millions of people, trillions of people, who've probably never had the chance to even exist. They don't get to experience this. And we all get one chance. Just one. No do-overs, no repeats. Just one. And doesn't that make the need to fight for a better society more pressing? That all these other people around us are experiencing this one lifetime, this gift that we have, that nothing, that again, this is all luck. This is all happenstance. It's a statistic. It's factual. It's a factual thing. This is a statistical unlikelihood. It's insane. It really puts so much into perspective. Like, do you really want to sit there and fucking argue about, like, fucking, like, the newest Marvel movie when you're like, wow, I only have one chance. I was statistically zero chance of me existing, and yet I'm here. Even though by definition I have not broken the odds, because again, the statistical likelihood of me being here is just so insignificantly small that it is zero, but I exist. I am beyond the zero number. And that makes the fact that it makes this life way more important. It makes everything we do so much more important. The fact that there isn't a do-over, there isn't a reward waiting for us, it makes it so much better. How is that not liberating? That you don't have this weight on your shoulder that you have to please a specific person, and instead, you get to choose your own destiny. You get to choose your own path. And also, why does this not invigorate you to get more active and more involved and make society better, so that other people who live in this society, who might not be as fortunate, might have the chance to be able to live this life like we do? To quote a song that I listen to a lot, Glory Hallelujah by Frank Turner, if we accept that there's an end game and we haven't got much time, then in the here and now we can try and do things right. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so much to do, and like, there's also there is some sadness to understand about this, because it also puts into perspective just how fleeting it. Like, again, one of the things that is like the statistical likelihood of it, like the statistical likelihood of me existing is, of course, like just a big happenstance, but also is the same way I will go. There are various factors that I can do to prevent things from going a specific way. You know, I can eat healthier, which I have. I can like work out a lot more, which I have. I can, avoid like, illicit substances, which I have. I can do a lot of things, but there are also a lot of things that just genetically that just sometimes happen. There's also just the fact that I could just walk out the street and just get hit by a car and then die. I could fall asleep and just get an aneurysm in my head and then fucking die. That could just happen. It can literally just happen. You come from nothing based on happenstance, and you will leave the same way. And that's the one thing about religion, is like, I get it. It's a comforting thought that one day, you'll go to sleep, and then when you wake up, you're going to be surrounded by all the people that you lost, and all the people, and you're all going to be happy, and you're going to have a happy ending, and then the people who are going to still be on Earth are going to come meet you eventually. That's all nice and good. But it's also nice to believe that your puppy ran away from home, and those mysterious flowers your dad planted were just a coincidence. It's easier to believe that we are put here for a purpose, and we won't leave until that purpose is complete, but that's just not true. Life isn't fair. It's random. Great people die young, monsters live for decades. Henry Kissinger got to live to the age of 100 years old. And yeah, it's a comforting thought to have every single person be like, haha, now he's burning in hell for all of eternity for all the bad shit he did. That's not what happened. He lived a ripe old age of 100 and died. That's what happened. Much in the same way, it's nice to think that the children of Gaza who have been murdered relentlessly for the possibility of like a person being rewarded for their God are actually also being rewarded by their God in the happy sense of like you suffered and now you're being rewarded for it. That's a nice thought, but that's not true. That's not what's happened. The children of Gaza are dead, and they're dead. They're not coming back. They're not being rewarded in the afterlife. They're not worshiping with Allah. They're not being friends with Muhammad. That's not what happened. They died. They were murdered because some people used a specific interpretation of a specific book that made it so a specific deity was telling them to murder children. As much as we can fight to delay the inevitable, it's still inevitable. It's both a beauty and a curse. It sucks. It does suck that one day I will die, and it will happen. It sucks that that's gonna happen. It doesn't. It's not that it doesn't. It obviously bothers me. It's a fact. If I think about it, then yeah, I accept the fact that I will die one day. But that is the one thing that we can never change about life, that it will end. But again, that's the one thing we can't change. There's so much that we can change. Why does this one life have to be miserable? It doesn't. You don't have to suffer to get a gain in the future. You don't have to interpret a specific book a specific way to find the correct pathway. A thing that I like to say a lot nowadays is, why do we have to search for a heaven up there when we can build one down here? So yeah, hopefully that answered the question. And hopefully it made sense to at least somebody. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to continue to try and do things that make this short existence worth something. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video of mine comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.